Okay, so we're here in Goodsprings today. I just wanted to do kind of a recap on the windmills and a little bit of the history and the guy that installed it. And okay, so November 11th was the day that we decided to start putting these windmills in. Okay, pretty damn exciting day today. It is November 11th today, and we are getting ready to put up the windmills. I got Cash to come help me put up these windmills. And what we're doing today is we're gonna try to get the old mill off. Tomorrow morning, I will have 2 new old stock Aeromotors that will be showing up. The guy that brought me all this stuff, Herman, he's a hell of a guy. This guy's 76 or 7 years old. He still gets up every day. He works his ass off. He's got a construction company, and he loves to mess with these Aeromotor windmills. I found him through other people that I was talking to about windmills, and it's kind of a underground world out there. These guys that have windmills, it's like, you know, he goes around the country buying windmills at auctions. So these ones actually came out of New Mexico. Both of my windmills are New Mexico windmills. I've been talking to Herman for almost a year on these windmills, trying to get a good day and time, and nothing really worked out because of different events. But we finally got him out here to get these windmills and help me put these windmills up. You know, Herman knows his way around these windmills pretty good. It was nice to have him here to kind of guide us through some of the questions that we had to have on, you know, leveling it out and getting it straight and getting everything just right, so this thing is going to last for the next, you know, 25 or 30 years. But the stories this old windmill can probably tell, you know, because these are not a new windmill. These are all old stock that he goes through. He grabs all these windmills and he takes the best parts out of all of them and makes a good old windmill. I told him I wanted these windmills to be very nostalgic. I didn't want them to look like they were a brand new windmill. Herman went through, he got all his old parts, and that's how he told me he does it. He goes, I don't do new stuff. He goes, I try to get all the old stuff because the old gears and all the old parts in those were so much better than the new stuff. A lot of the new stuff comes from overseas or different places, and they just don't last as long. He told me this windmill should have no problem to sit here and spin for 25 more years, which is a pretty good time to, you know, just get up there once a year, make sure it's got gear oil in it and service it a little bit and let it work. You know, I've messed around with a little bit of the windmills. I didn't know a whole lot about them. I've never actually put one up on the tower. These already had the towers here. These towers were a different brand than an Aeromotor. So what you have to do basically is you have to put the stub tower on the top. And to do that, you have to basically cut about 1.5 feet of the old tower off. So up there at the top right there, we had to get in there, and you can see in this video, me and Cash cutting the top off of this thing and getting it where we can set it over the top of the old tower and make it line out. So with the old stuff on there, it wouldn't have worked because we couldn't get down far enough. You basically got to take the new tower and spline it up with the old one and get it lined out and re-drill new holes. And it's a process. It's a lot of work. It was way more work than I thought. Another thing about these towers, you can't just go in there with a torch, start blowing holes in it with a torch and welding things together. They will crack and break. Everything has to be drilled and bolted together so it doesn't crack or break because of the vibration and, you know, the amount of work that these windmills do. You go up there and I just set the sub tower on and I weld it on. There's a good chance that it's going to break and fall off at some point. But everything was on this tower here. We just had to get up there. We had 2 forklifts. We had to make us a jib basically off the one forklift to set the tower. And then the other one was just a man basket so we could climb up and down. And, you know, a lot of these guys, what they do is they lay these down on the ground and then they put the mill up on it and then they stand them back up. But like on this one right here, what I did is we just had enough equipment and forklifts to be able to do this. Me and Cash found a piece of heavy 3/8 angle iron and we put a hole in it. We bolted it to the forks, put another hole in it, and we rigged it up so we could pick this thing up and stretch it out there. The forks on my forklift were not quite high enough to get up above the windmill to set it down, so we had to make this jib on the end of it to be able to set the windmill. This is our little jib pole we're making. We got a hole here to go in the fork. And then we're gonna bolt it onto here, clamp it down, and then we can extend basically our fork extension another, I think it's about 16 feet to pull the tower or the top of the motor off the windmill. what we did, I have this 3/8 inch, 4-inch piece of angle iron that we're going to use later on, you'll see, because we're going to need it for another part of another well. But we're going to set the windmills with this as our jib. I was going to get a crane out here, but I didn't want a crane to have to sit here all day to take that one off, then come back and set the other two. So we made this so we can just pull that off, hopefully. So this is our little sketchy crane. So we'll see how it works. This one here, we went ahead and put the 8-footer up on here because, you know, you're coming into town, coming down Spring Street, which is our main, like the main road coming into town, and a bigger windmill looks attractive. The tower itself is an 8-footer. So there's different sizes of towers. The angle iron on them step up as you put a bigger mill on it. This one, the max you could do is an 8-footer. That's what it was built for. That's what we did. The one down in the yard down here in the garden is a 6-footer. There's a couple reasons why. There's power lines that are kind of close to the windmill, and I didn't want to put a big one up because the bigger they get, they're just bigger, and I don't want to swing it into anything. So we were a little close to some power lines, so we wanted to make sure that that one was a little bit smaller. But the one down in the yard was a little trickier getting in there because the terrain getting in there wasn't as nice as this one. This one was easier to get to. That one's a lot harder to get into. This is my one that's going to be in my garden in my yard. This is going to be a 6-foot windmill. The other one was an 8. I do have another well here that I might pull one up. Right now, these are the two that I had towers already up. So we're just trying to put the windmills on. They're a little bit more work than I thought they were going to be to install. Pretty amazing how mechanically ingenious they work. Like, it's just crazy to think that it goes around, pumps water right out of the ground. And here in the desert, the number one thing that we need is water. The great thing is the water's not very far down in the ground. So these are very critical for this area and for up here. And it's really satisfying to see them up and rolling one more time. So hopefully by the end of the day, we can get this one up. Probably have to come in and put all the sucker rod in it, and so we can pull the water out of the ground. But today I'd be happy if I got the windmills up and they're going around and they look cool. So hopefully this one will go a little faster. The second time around it usually goes faster. Smaller windmill too. But I think that for the most part, there was a few little things that we had to kind of fabricate here in the field and do some welding on to make them work. We've got, like I said, a lot of these windmills are just old stock. They're not new, they're old. And so a few of the blades needed to be welded back together. So we actually welded the blades back together here, right here on the spot. There was a couple of rods that we had to adjust on the lower windmill that needed some welding. This is the 6-foot windmill, and we have a couple of cracks in it that we're going to weld together before we start putting it up. This is actually going down there, but this is getting the 8-footer. I'm waiting on one more guy to maybe show up to go up there with cash. So we're going to weld it back together real quick. This is how you teach your kids how to weld. So you just look like you know how to weld, but you're really letting them weld. Cowboy boots on. And so most of this stuff, it's the real deal. This is old, cool stuff that needed to be reworked a little bit, but they're pretty forgiving. You'd think that these things sit up here when it's blowing a 80-mile-an-hour wind and they survive. But they went up pretty good. Like I said, I got to finish putting the pipe and the sucker rod in it. We got to get the pumps in them so they'll pump water. I'll probably do that this spring. We'll start doing it when the grass starts getting green around here a little bit, and we're going to start pumping some water when I need the water. Right now I don't need it as bad. Right now I got some other projects I'm working on, but the hard part's done. They look really cool. They keep the town looking nostalgic and old. They really have water at the bottom of them. So you could see in this video, probably at some point, me and Cash cleaning out the water well over here. Okay, so today what we are doing is we're going deep down in this well hole, and over the years it's kind of got full of muck. I'm trying to get at least 3 to 5 feet of good water. Right now I've only got maybe a foot if I'm lucky. Yeah, 3 to 4 feet. The groundwater's sitting at probably about 13 feet. Right now, this is summertime, I'm thinking that come winter, when we're not in as much of a drought, it's been a really hot summer this year. So I'm sure that our water has dropped a little, but a good 3 or 4 feet of water. The hole down there, it's probably 6 feet around, 5 or 6 feet around. You're probably looking at, I don't know, probably 500 gallons. And that's continuous. So every time the water starts to go down, the groundwater's still feeding it. Anyway, I'm gonna go down there and try to load up a bucket of shit to send to Cash so we can, if this ladder will make it. Yeah, it's actually brought up some water. Okay, so even with this vac truck, this has been a lot of work to try to get at least about another 3 feet of muck out of here. Cash is down there with a shovel right now, shoveling it out. But now I think that we have probably another 3. So I'd say we got 4.5 feet of water in there. So I would say at all times it should be holding probably 700 gallons, 800 gallons right there. So what we'll do is we'll set the well up to pump as much water as it should so it doesn't over pump it out. We want to keep water in there all the time. But if it's just pumping a little bit at a time into a storage tank, in a day I'll be able to fill up 5,000 gallons. We probably sucked 4 feet of mud out of it and got it back to where it works good. But yeah, it went up good. Herman, he's a hell of a character and knows his shit. His dad was a windmill guy, and you know, he's like I said, he's 76 years old. So his dad, you know, probably been into it since, you know, back in the 30s and the 20s when people were still using windmills a lot. So he knows his stuff. It was really cool to learn a bunch about these windmills. And it was great to have my son Cash out here helping me. He's such a great helper and, you know, smart. And, you know, it's like there's a reason why you got to raise your kids a certain way so they can help you when you get older. And it's funny because when I have both my kids out here, they already know what I need. So sometimes I'll just go around the corner and just hide out and let them figure it out so I don't have to do it. I'll let them guys fight about it. So it's cool. It's great having them out helping me out. But anyway, windmills are up. Like I said, we're going to finish them up. There'll be another video of them actually pumping water and where I'm going to pump the water to and the features that I'll make with it. And, you know, nowadays we don't have to worry about, you know, feeding a bunch of cattle or watering cattle out here. So most of it will be for fun. You get to come out and maybe we'll get some tailings out of these mines so we can set up a spot where you can mine for gold out here and find some silver and things like that. And that's what we'll use the water for. We'll pump it right out of the well so you can kind of sit there and, you know, sift through it and see if you guys can find some gold. So that's the main thing. But it's been fun. Cool windmills. Check them out. Hopefully you like this video.